I never thought I'd be able to see such a large shift in societal behavior than when I noticed us getting weaker. Everything seems to hurt our feelings these days, and challenging our beliefs and views is no longer something you can do when you first meet someone. I remember as a kid, if someone made fun of my religion, I'd ask what they believed and have a discussion. Not only did it open up both our minds, but made us friends as well. Only after could we see where the other was coming from, but it seems the more you try to do that now, the more people shut down, and this happens a lot with politics. Now don't try to throw this into some American-only problem, as I've seen this behavior coming out of most first world countries. We can throw the blame at each other or the internet all we want, but let's instead do the unthinkable. Let's talk openly about politics and see if we can figure out why this is such a touchy subject all of a sudden. Now, politics is a very broad topic ranging from feminism to evolution. See, the definition of politics is the activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. But today it seems that the word politics simply means a controversial topic that some people have differing stances on, and if you meet someone with opposing stances, you should slowly walk the other way. Now, of course, I'd like to keep this broad, as going into every political topic would take years to cover, so let's start with its government affiliation. See, in a democratic society like America, you have political parties. These parties hold certain values, such as if abortion should be legalized, or which drugs they are and aren't okay with, stemming as far as which laws should be in place for the sake of equality, and the other sides all feel differently on these subjects, typically based on location. See, if I live on the East Coast with a lot of cities around me, my concerns may involve population density and food shortage, so that would be what's on my mind. On the West Coast, I may be more concerned with jobs, economy. Over here in the middle, I'm thinking about water for my crops and the well-being of my livestock, and I'm not trying to stereotype here, but each party has its own specific needs, and then in this political system, voting someone in who cares more for your issues is what's best for you. But the problem is, this kind of says screw you to the rest of the people who wanted their issues resolved, and this government in practice isn't the most efficient one. Then you have political monarchies in which there's a head of state, typically a king or queen, and their decisions are made through a group of executives or with votes from the people who reside in the land. This works well so long as everyone agrees with the decisions made, but again, not entirely efficient. You also have communism, which instills a system where every piece of property is shared between all, and work is shared based on the physical abilities of everyone, which sounds awesome on paper, but again in practice has its own fair share of issues. Dictatorships are governed by a dictator where regardless as to what people want, only one person makes rules and is followed by all, typically praised as some sort of god. And then there's socialism, which essentially advocates that any sort of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned by the community as a whole. Now, there are a lot more ways other countries run their societies, and all of these work differently, but none of them perfectly, and the reason why is quite simple. When you govern potentially millions of people, you're going to have those whose needs are not met and will speak up for themselves and their families or those in the area in which they live. No government system has the ability to look after all of its people, at least not yet, and this could be because we're still really underdeveloped or entirely lazy, but I'm going to let you decide that for yourselves. Now, there have been in the past political systems that did work. The Romans were not perfect, but they held every person in high regard, even to the degree that if a Roman was killed in a foreign land, the Roman military would destroy that entire land no matter how big it was. Why can't we do this today? Well, in small cases we do, but seldom do we take down full cities over one person, and the Romans weren't worried about nuclear war back then, so their actions may have suffered less consequences. But the reason that I'm even talking about all this so vaguely, which I am, which apologies if that's annoying you, is because firstly, it would take forever to go too far in depth with all these systems, but more importantly because I wanted to show you how simple politics can be. It seems like today, people are so afraid of getting into a conversation just to even see where someone else is coming from, that they shut down political discussion before it can even begin. I can't tell you how many times, however, I've forced my way through, insisting with people that they share with me their political views so that I, the next generation, can learn, can absorb, and form my own opinions. What does it help to not share your views? To shut down and cower when people talk about the current president, or rules that the Queen has set in place? Especially if you live in a country where your thoughts and ideas are considered free speech. You have nothing to be afraid of. See, I don't even have a political side. If you asked me if I was a Republican, or a Democrat, or part of the Green Party, or Libertarian, I wouldn't know how to respond. See, I wouldn't be able to latch myself to the views of others. I just don't work that way. If someone asked me my thoughts on gun control, I'd give it to them. Let's say my thoughts match the thoughts of a libertarian, but then you ask me my thoughts on abortion and they oddly enough match the views of the Green Party. How wrong of me not to stick to one set way of thinking, and I just hate that. See, if I had to label myself, I'd say I was a rationalist or a realist, someone who thinks over the problem for myself and comes up with the best answer not because of my political views, but because it makes sense to me and the way I rationalize. I personally hate the American party system. It just keeps us mad at each other instead of who we should be angry at. Meanwhile, our government pretends it can only solve one specific set of people's issues at 4-year intervals. It's ridiculous. Yet another reason talking about politics doesn't bother me. I just don't feel like they matter that much. But the point of this video is not to discredit the political system that my country's government has in place, but instead to show you that there's nothing to be afraid of. When someone at school shuts down when asked about their political views, speak up and say, "No, wait, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are." If you're hanging out with friends and it comes up, don't be afraid to chime in, especially if you live in a country ran by a dictator. I'm not saying full-on revolt, I mean that's dangerous as hell and would be very irresponsible of me, but a dictator's only as strong as his people are loyal, so keep that in mind. See, it's no more than a conversation, and it broadens our minds, makes you aware of issues you may not have known exist, and gives you insight into the side of the argument that you may have never thought of before. Things in your country may not always work out, from president to president, queen to king, and politician to politician. But there's one thing that's always certain, and that is everything is person to person.